Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Keys to AWS Optimization, where today we'll be talking about how to build your own MCP and how to make sure that it's optimized. These guys came to you with this topic, and I am, as always, super excited to dive into it, mainly because we've had, I think, 1 or 2 episodes talking about MCPs and sharing those, demoing and whatnot. But we're going to get behind the scenes, talk a little about what they are, when you should use them, and how to make your own. But before we get started, let's jump into our first question, which is always, have you had a frugal week or a splurgy week? Judith, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I have to say I had a frugal week. Eventually, I'm here. This is why it's frugal and not somewhere else. And we have Halloween here today. So this is why it's frugal for now.
Excellent. It's just nice and simple. It's like sometimes it's going to be frugal, especially when we get into that time of year. It's almost the holidays where it gets even more expensive. But yes. Shabo, what about you? Frugal or
Uh,
splurgy?
I think it was the other way out for me actually. I was on a splurging spree last week because it was the Diwali for us, and we were having a lot of fun partying and buying stuff and gifting each other stuff. So the next week I'm going to be more frugal. So yeah, looking forward to it.
It's always funny to watch like guess who you speak to like the week before is this, the week after is this, because I think I've had a splurgy week the whole month because, as people know, I mentioned I'm having my Halloween party this weekend. And let me know in the chat, did anyone join our spooky spectacular session last week? I had to go from that live stream where I dressed up like a clown into a meeting, so that was great fun. I have my party this weekend and I got my food shop delivered and I realized how much money I'd spent on stuff at the party, but it's going to be good times. A couple of questions in there. Producer Jeff says frugal, he's been living off Halloween candy. On that, my boss kindly bought me some candy corn from the States, which I love. So if anyone has leftover candy corn they don't want, bring it to reInvent and I will take that off your hands. Brilliant. So hello everyone in the chat, welcome. Let's get into today's show. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show we share stories, concepts and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm a senior SA advocate here to help you on your FinOps journey. And with me is my 2 lovely guests. Do you want to do your 1-minute origin stories? Judith, why don't you go first?
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Judith. I'm Principal TAM based in Israel. And I'm also part of the CFM community in AWS, leading CFM tips that we will talk about later today.
Perfect. And Shabo, do you want to go too?
Hi everyone, I'm Shubho. I'm the Senior Technical Account Manager based in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm also part of the technical field community for CFM. I am an active member working on different CFM MCP, and we'll see that in a little bit as well.
Yeah, and Judith has been on many times before, often talking about the very cool CFM tips. So we'll come back to that in a bit. But if you haven't checked out CFM tips before, what are you doing? It's the best place to gather all of that knowledge, and I'll make sure that we drop that in the chat. But you guys came to me when you wanted to do this episode, and so Judith, do you want to share any backstory, maybe also about the CFM tips MCP that we have before we get started?
Yeah, sure. So if we're talking about CFM tips, it's like a repository of best practices for AWS cost optimization. But today with Gen AI, we know that customers, users want to be more productive. They want to use an agent and not just start reading everything outside of a repository or knowledge base. So this is when Shubu came with the idea, let's build an MCP, let's make it easier for our customers. And then we learned all about it and see, how productive it helped us to be once we're using the MCP, and we're able to get this information much faster.
Yeah, straight into that console and connected to your accounts is using AI for what it is. So we're going to talk, like we said, about so a little bit of background of when you should use these, because maybe MCP isn't the answer to everything. So we'll have a bit of discussion about that. And then we're going to go into a live demo of how to make one of these, which I'm super excited about just to see what the process is like, but definitely an understanding when. As always, put any comments, questions in the chat as we go. We'll be pulling out those to kind of quiz these guys. So Judith, why do we need MCPs? Big picture version.
So it's a good question. At the end, we need MCP because we want to standardize how we access API calls or specific tools. We don't need to write everything on our own. There are a lot of official MCPs that we can use. It gives us access to specific data source, so we don't need to understand how we should connect to that data source, which parameters it needs to get. So it's removing all those heavy lifting from us as users. And at the end, it's just making stuff easier for us to get the information that we need.
Mm-hmm. And with that kind of those parameters and those setups, like you said, what was it as a simple example that maybe people who haven't used them could understand it through? So what would be like a manual process versus what an MCP could do?
So maybe an easy example is if you want to get information from Cost Explorer, so you can run an API call, but maybe it's more easier to you to run a natural language that is asking what is my 3 months trends in a specific account versus writing the API call.
I see. Okay, that makes total sense, because yeah, if anyone hasn't tried doing an API call or a CLI command for using Cost Explorer, you guys have seen Cost Explorer. If you haven't, check it out. But there's so many different drop downs. It would take so long for you to get it. Sometimes you're like, oh, which version of Spend do I want? Or all these things. Turning it into that natural language of asking a question is great. And there's two people who I think are people watching that'll be interested in this kind of concept. Technical people that want to learn how to build these things, but also non-technical people. You can go and take advantage of these, so you don't have to ask someone else to get the data. You can just ask normal questions like you would a person, and that's going to be very, very powerful, which is awesome. And Judith, when we just said like some reasons why, but in a more deeper perspective, when would you need to actually build an MCP?
So I think there are two reasons to build an MCP. The first one, you are very curious, you want to learn how it works, everyone is talking about it, so let's try it out. And the second one is these specific capabilities that you are looking for doesn't exist. So when we build the CFM Tips MCP, it's because we didn't have this capability in other tools. So we said, let's have it and build it for us so we can use it.
Okay. And we got a question. Do I need to be technical to build an MCP? I don't know who wants to answer.
I can take that. And if you hang on a little bit as well, you'll see that you don't have to be super technical to build an MCP. So to answer directly, you don't have to be super technical. But what would be nice is, like Judith mentioned, if you want to do simple tasks and you want to make more of a productivity gains, you can start building MCPs using LLM or using an agent. We'll see one such example today.
Yeah, and if you are hearing these words and you're like, what? Then do not worry, because I feel like interesting as well. We talked about agents on here before in a different context, so I'm definitely excited to see a more specific example. But Judith, sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I wanted to add on top of that. So you don't have to start in building, an MCP from scratch. You can take an MCP, you can play with it, you can add the functionalities that you think that might be missing. So you can start small, and you can also build an MCP if you think that you want to have access to specific data sources that you want to, incorporate together as a package. So there are a lot of reasons why you want to do that.
Oh, and we've had another question, which is, what is the best MCP you are using? Maybe other than CFM tips. That's cheating. But yeah, any tips that any MCPs people should look out for and you find really useful? Should
you have been using a lot of diagrams and AWS doc related MCPs, because it is kind of challenging if I want to find what is the latest doc about a particular solution. I want to look it up. So AWS documentation is really a good MCP that is really super handy. That comes with real-time queries. You can naturally ask, hey, I'm building this project, find me a relevant code documentation from AWS docs, and we get that. So that is super handy one.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know we had that, right? Making a mentor. Sometimes I go to like write things down when I'm on this and I'm like, it's recorded. And if you didn't know, these are recorded. You can check them out on YouTube. We'll make sure to share some links after, or wherever you're watching again, you can watch this back. But Judith, what about you?
I have to say, I like the pricing MCP. I think, it's so easy now to write which architecture you want to build and then what's the pricing of it, and, ask for different options and just get it so fast. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I've got that one set up. Was it the one I like having is the CloudFormation one. So I use CloudFormation to build my infrastructure as code, and having it, I think what I can see the difference with is before I would get more syntax errors, because especially when I was using things like Q and it was newer, I was noticing sometimes I go to deploy it and it's like, no, versus when I have the MCP, then it's a little bit smarter, basically. This is a good kind of prompt, which is wonderful about the documentation one, because I see a lot of hallucinations from LLMs when asking about documentation. So great that that's in there. Let's talk a little bit. So similar kind of context, which is, well, Shabo, who should be building these? I know you mentioned not you have to be technical, but who are the people that you're seeing should be building out MCPs for their organization?
So if I go back to the previous comment that somebody did on the chat about the hallucinations, I think that is the good use case as well. So if you are as a builder starting to see the LLMs are hallucinating you their special requirements, or you have certain areas that you want to cover, start building MCPs for that, right? That is a easy low hanging fruits. But also at the same time, if you are, let's say, a techno enthusiast who wants to, let's say, remove a lot of overhead that you have for during your development experiences, like do test cases, run documentation, draw some lucid pictures or diagrams, use MCPs and start building MCPs would be a good idea to that. With regards to solution architects and roles like that, you could start thinking about, hey, I want to do, let's say, code reviews for my organization, and I want to have certain code principles in place. That is a good exercise for building an MCP, I would say. So wherever you see you want to give the agentic approach an LLM to be able to do something more customized to your requirements, start building one. So those are the personas I would say would be the good personas who want to start building something.
Brilliant. And when we did the MCP episode, I think of the billing one. Billing, what's it called? What's the full name? Billing something.
Billing and cost management.
Yes, thank you. My mind went blank then. When we did that one, the demo was done in Claude. It wasn't done in IDE or QChat or anything. So I wonder, is there an example you have of a non-technical reason to create an MCP? Would either of you have any suggestions? I would try to think broader audience.
I would say email automation is one that is catching up. So let's say you have a lot of emails that you want to go through and you want to summarize them. You can start building an MCP for that, right? And you can use ones that is coming up. So there are those productivity related MCPs as well. I saw one silly one as well, which talks about booking your calendar out for your own personal time, and which I say silly, but it is so intuitive as well, so that you can focus on some Pomodoro modes and get some work done, right?
Yeah, that's really clever. This is it. I think at the moment I focus, apart from using some kind of AI to do conversations with, I try not to use it outside of work and try and retain my creativity. But yeah, definitely it's fun to see what people are using it in their normal lives, which is very cool. Hopefully that has inspired you to maybe come up and chat. Let me know. Has anyone in the chat seen any fun ones? Anything that's going to make my life easier? That's what I want. I don't want it to do the stuff I enjoy, but yeah, any personal MCP usage, let me know what people have seen. So what do they look like in terms of a broad kind of question? Is it a lot of code? Is it a simple thing? Is it a couple of files? Like, what's the kind of structure and outline of what they look like?
In a generic situation, an MCP is basically a server. So it's an extension of, let's say, if you're used to writing APIs, it is similar to writing that, right? And just like APIs, it can be in any language of your choice. It could be a Python, it could be Java, it could be .NET. Same goes for MCPs. There are different frameworks that you could use. There are different mechanisms that you can build, but there are two which stands out. The fast MCP, that's one of the coolest ones, and to get started, as the name suggests, and it is built on Python library. So that one is a good starting point. And what happens inside the MCP is basically you have a layer which kind of exposes the tools, that explains LLMs that hey, this is a tool for certain purpose, and then in behind the tool exposure you have the actual code which does the business logic. I'm calling it business logic for the sake of understanding it as an API structure. And beyond that, you could call probably other MCPs, or you could do certain API calls. So it could be a master of other MCPs, like Judith mentioned in the beginning. You can even extend an existing MCP with your own MCP on top of it.
Mhm.
And maybe like another addition, think about MCP. It's like any code that you are developing, any projects that you are developing. So you can start small and have a few capabilities or functionalities. For example, in CFM tips, we supported 4 playbooks, but then you can add more and more as you go. You do commits, you do pull requests. So it's like any other dev project.
Okay, we've had 2 great questions that I want to bring up. This is not a dumb question, but this is from someone who's non-technical. But where does an MCP live? For example, is it a document that lives locally, or is it in the cloud? Is it in a bucket? How do you update it? And does that update the model automatically? I'm going to say I think the last one is no, but that's a great question. Let's hit all those points now.
I can break it down into two.
Yeah.
The first part of the question is like, where does it live? So,
Yeah.
like we said, it's a server, so you can host it on your own local machine if you want to, or you could create a host of it, like a Docker host or a EKS, for example, even Lambda for that matter, right? And you can put them on there. What we have also done recently is that we have Bedrock Agent Core, which supports MCPs. So you could deploy on Agent Core as well, and then use that as a framework as well. So there are more than one option to do it today. You could go serverless, you can go container, you can go self-hosted. So it's basically a code that lives and runs. The
Yeah.
second part of the
Okay.
question, sorry, go for it.
No, I was going to say, so for example, the ones that are in the AWS GitHub repo that show you how to connect to it, those live somewhere on a probably a container that Amazon owns, just like in the cloud. I don't know what I'm doing. I work in the cloud. I'm like in the cloud. Yeah. So is that right?
That's something, right? That's something
Yeah.
that we do. Yes, we have hosted once as well, and you could also connect them. Let's say you want to get a source code and host them yourself, so you could do that as well. So the CFM
Perfect.
tips, for example, is the self-hosted, so you can host them
Yeah.
yourself.
Okay, good to know. So that was a great question. And then what was the second half of the question?
About the model.
Oh yeah. How do you update it, and does that update the model?
So the MCPs do not call the model; rather, the model calls the MCPs. So let's say when you're chatting to an LLM agent, the LLM agent is trained on certain data sets. Let's say they were trained on a data set until 2024, for example. And but now the data has changed, and also you have something that is very specific to your task, which the model will not be knowing. So what you're doing is you're basically saying that, hey, for these tasks I want you to use certain tools, and that tools is nothing but the MCP. So it would be other way out. The LLM would be calling the models, the MCP in this case.
And maybe we will see also in the demo, sometimes when you run MCP and your intention is to run one of the tools, but the LLM like takes over and try to run a CLI command or an API call, because the LLM also has its own knowledge. So sometimes you need to tell the model, please use this tool from this MCP.
Interesting. Okay. All right. And they said thank you. All right. A couple more questions. Linked to what you just said, what is the difference between MCP and Agent Core?
That's a very good question. So Agent Core is basically a runtime where you can host different agents, and MCP is a protocol to call these tools. So consider Agent Core as your compute, and on the compute, then you can have different tools, different agents that does the tasks. So the tools which is doing the task is nothing but the MCP server, and where it's hosted is nothing but the Agent Core. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's how
Right.
it looks like. Yeah.
Because someone said, could you elaborate on the Bedrock implementation? Is that something we'll see in the demo, or something we could suggest people look at somewhere else?
We are not unfortunately touching that today. So we are going to look at QCLI and LLM as the built to do the MCP. So we'll see QCLI and MCP.
Okay, no worries. I'll ask Secret Richard if he wouldn't mind finding some links maybe on how to host MCPs connected with Agent Core. Drop that in. And one more question is there an MCP equivalent of IAC, of infrastructure as code, like Terraform?
I quite didn't get the question. If
Yeah.
can somebody elaborate that question a little bit?
Yeah, I think we might need some elaboration because it's not the same as it's not like a type of building. Is it? It's like it's a protocol of command. So maybe elaborate more on what you mean. But this is a good segue question is can you show us a sample? So let's bring on, I think they want to see the demo. So let's bring up your screen. All right, let's go for it.
Okay. So what you see is QCLI now, and on QCLI, you could start building an MCP. So let's start with simple prompt that we can ask QCLI to do. I'm thinking we should do something for pricing since we spoke about pricing. So let's say we're going to prompt it. I have a prompt that is pre-built, uh, which says, "Hey, you're a developer who is proficient in Python, and you have done multiple projects before. So we're just creating a persona to the LLM. Hey, this is what your persona looks like, and I want you to build an MCP that runs an infrastructure code. You can do CDK for Lambda, RDS, API gateway, and then generate price estimate for that. So we are basically instructing LLM to help us generate an MCP. So with that, now what Q is doing in the background, it's taking that persona. Hey, I am I'm creating a to-do list of development tasks that it has to do. It has picked up, hey, I need to build this requirements, so I want to do these different uh, libraries that I want to use. And for this libraries and dependencies, it's asking me, should I go ahead with this? Should I start writing the code? Yes, please go ahead. Be my
Before
guest.
you jump, what we can always scroll back down. But so, did you provide it with those requirements file, or did it already exist?
No, I didn't put any of those. I just mentioned, hey,
Okay.
you have to do this certain version of a Python. And why did that?
Ah,
Because I have Python 3.2 on 12 on my local, so that's why I just said 3.12. You could say Java, for example. You could say Node.js, for example, and that would be up to what your choice of programming languages.
mhm. Okay. All right. No worries. All right. What happens next?
So it goes ahead, it writes a bunch of code, it creates a parser. So let's it run through, and it will generate the code. Once it generates the code, the structure of the code would look like you have a in Python you have a requirement document, which is basically all the dependencies. You have an entry point to the application, and you'll have some tools that we just mentioned. So it's creating a pricing calculator. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to say yes. And all this time you see it's asking for, do you want to run the tool, yes or no? This is QCLI asking us that question. And as you can see, as it starts building, it kicks which are the tasks it has completed. So this is a really
Yeah.
new feature of QCLI, which I love.
Mhm.
And this helps me to think rationally as well, what the steps it's going to do. And if I'm not happy at any given point in time, I can just say, hey, redo this step.
Ah.
I
Okay.
With
think
the to
that
do, is that? Oh, go on, Judith.
just want to add a note that trusted part is important. I think that we should be aware of what we are approving, Q to run. So think about before you press T or Y and continue with the commands.
That's a very good call.
Yeah.
And how would you recognize it? You would see something here on the top, what tool it's using. It says FS write, that's file system write. So it's asking me, can I write in this folder? Yeah, sure. I trust this folder. So let's go ahead.
Yeah. It's funny because I need to get better at doing that. Because I'm like, yeah, whatever you want, Q. I'm just very much do your thing, whatever. Don't be bad practices like me. Another question that I had was when with that to-do feature, is that native or do you need to do anything to get that in QCLI?
You need to upgrade to the latest version of QCLI, and it is part of it now.
Perfect. All right. And we've got a couple of questions, but I'll wait till we finish this section before I jump into those guys.
No worries. So what it's doing in the background now, it's installing the MCP, it's trying to build the application and saying, hey, I'm going to test it as well. So yeah, be my guest.
Sure. We love. There's there's obviously so many different elements to it. Interesting. Okay, so it's made this whole structure, and is that a classic kind of structure of an MCP?
Yes, and that's the entry point, which is your main server, which is server .py. You would have the function, which is the parsing function that we wanted it to create as a business requirement. We wanted it to do pricing calculation, so there's a pricing calculator, and it created a sample config file just in case I don't know how to configure MCP. I'm a newbie, so it created a
Mhm.
configuration as well as the test cases and the README. So that's pretty much standard for an MCP. So it's a three-tier architecture basically that you can see as well.
Okay, brilliant. So it's created two for us.
So it created two tools. One is analyze, another one is compare. So one would analyze the project, another one will compare the prices across multiple AWS regions. And if you remember in my prompt, I said, hey, I want to look at these particular resources. It has just built for those particular resources. You could go and say, I'm not writing projects in CDK, I'm writing projects in Terraform. I want to build in Terraform. You can do that. If you're building in Ansible, you can still go and do that. So it doesn't matter what framework you're using underneath. You can change that. So this is something that you could play around with.
Okay. And then is that done?
Yeah,
Is it
it's done.
all?
It's ready. It's ready to
Oh,
use.
okay. That was so fast. So with the things that you've given, should we have a go at trying it?
Yeah, we could. Let's do that. Let's.
Shibu,
Should I show?
maybe show afterwards the tools, like how you can look at the tools that you just created.
Yeah. I will configure this and I'll show the tools. Meanwhile, if you want to take questions, we can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, let's do that. How do you, what we'll do is we'll bring your, there we go. Okay, we've got a bunch of questions. Thank you, everyone. The questions, I'm loving all the questions. This is exactly why we bring these guys on. Is there anything in the MCP ecosystem that is equivalent to infrastructure as code, like tools like Terraform? Basically, something that lets you define or manage agent setups, context capabilities declaratively, like IAC for MCP.
That's a very good question, and we are going to look at that as a demo in the end of it, which is called a spec-based development of an MCP.
Ah,
So we'll talk about that. But also, there is a link which we can send about what the MCP project looks like, and that is the GitHub link. If you could just pop that in.
yeah, we'll share that in the chat. Perfect. So stick around. We'll be coming back to what that specifically is, and your question will be answered. This question, well, it's a statement. So is an MCP basically a steering dock, but for LLM? Judith, does that sound right? Or should I?
I think that you can eventually you can create a steering dock inside your environment. So it's not just for one MCP. You can create a combination. This is how I use it. I've created a steering dock that uses multiple MCPs for specific functionalities that I want to create for myself.
Oh, is a steering dock an actual thing? I've never had that term before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. There you go. Who knew? I'm learning. I'm always learning, folks. This is it. Someone's asking me for references. They're through the chat. I'll share the GitHub repo again. Here's a classic question that we get. Thank you for using Amazon Q. I've been using Q. It's a wonderful tool. I agree. A question is, what is the difference between Amazon Q and Kiro? Either of you want to jump on this one?
Judith, want to take that?
Yeah. So Q is, you can open Q, it's QCLI, you can open it from the console, you can use it basically for everything. But Kiro, it's an IDE, meaning it's a tool for developers that you can use. In Kiro, you also have Q, so you also have Q capabilities, but it comes with additional capabilities for the development lifecycle. So in my mind, if we're trying to simplify it, it's a more advanced way to use those MCPs, those Gen AI tools. Shubho, do you want to add something on top of that?
Yeah. So Kiro is a development to environment like IDE, but it also comes with agentic approach. So meaning you get a lot of native agents. Steering docs is one of part of it. You have hooks in it. You could basically let the IDE build items for you, but also plan it more systematically. So that's the difference between Keto and QCLI based development. On the QCLI, rather, I would use it for anything that I want to do outside development as well. So let's say I don't want to have a whole IDE. I would just want to get my day-to-day stuff asking as an assistant, chat assistant, but more on a CLI. And I keep forgetting, oh, where did I keep the certain file, or what is the path of the certain file? In that case, Q CLI is very helpful. So that would be a big difference between the two.
So it's thinking Kiro, big spec, application building, Q, assistant. Yeah, is that
Yeah,
a good way to summarize it?
Yeah.
that's a good way of
Perfect.
summarizing. Yeah.
It's a common question these days, but these are also different with China. I think Kiro is supposed to be its own entity, and Amazon Q is something integrated into your account so that you can use it and help as a little kind of helper. What have we got next? With the MCP, how do you add more features like Judith does in CFM tips? So Judith, you mentioned I think that you had
Yeah.
4 different things. When it comes to the one that we just made, how would you add more features to that?
So Shubu will also talk about it in the demo, how he built a spec, and the spec is eventually a requirements, like you do a product design, so you set up all the requirements in advance. So this is how we built the CFM Tips MCP. But eventually, it's a repository of code. So we started with a small version that included 4 playbooks, and then we decided, okay, let's add CloudWatch stuff that I know that you really like. So we built a new playbook. We created a branch for CloudWatch playbook. We ran the test. We created the new functionality, and then we commit this code, and soon we will publish it. So it's just like any other development cycle. You add another branch, you create a pull request, and you deploy it.
Brilliant. And one more question, which was, are there instruction docs for the spec that you mentioned? I don't think I have any. So if you have any links you want to send me in our chat, and I'll send those to the folks out there. But should we jump back to the demo?
Yeah, we can. So
There we go.
what we are looking at is basically the MCP.json. In the MCP.json, what for the queue it generated. So let me show you what it is. So when we ran the code, it generated the MCP.json for us, a sample. So what I'm doing now is that, hey, let's go to the queue MCP.json and add that piece of connect that so that we know queue can connect to this MCP and call this MCP. So that in that way, now our queue is connected to the tool. So that's what we are doing here in this MCP.json. And don't worry if you are looking where to find it. That's also something that you get on Q. You can ask Q where to find your MCP.json. So that's a good question for asking Q. Once you have that, you go to Q chat and the MCPs will start loading now. So in the background, what it's doing, it's loading the MCP. Let's give it a moment to try.
I have a great tip while we wait.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see that a specific MCP is not loaded, and then we start to ask ourselves, what happened? What did I forget to do? So a great advantage in Q in general, you can ask him why the MCP is not loading, please fix it. And most of the time, Q is able to fix it, which is great.
Yeah. So now, for example, now I'm think the code it generated, it is not able to understand that code. So now we can ask Q, hey, why it's not running? Why I'm not able to pick that MCP up? And Q will then start thinking, oh, did I miss a step? Oh, is this something that's missing? And to start building that. But for the demo today, I also have built a MCP already, which we'll not spend time in debugging. Rather, we will go into that MCP, right? Okay. So I have built something called as agent. We'll talk slowly next step about agent a little bit. But before I go to that, I'll show you what I've done for the agents. So agents are nothing but specialized list of MCPs. So what you have done is you can create based on what you feel like to do. For example, I want to be a TAM in my role, and I want to be an awesome TAM. So I will build in tools that I need for my job to be an awesome TAM, and that's why you see an awesome TAM as an agent. I have another agent which is hey, CFM tips. I want to put the hat of a CFM engineer, and then I want to do a FinOps engineering. So I will use FinOps engineer for that role. So then those agents are different hats that I want to wear, or I want my LLM to wear, and start working on that. And that's what we will do in this example. One that we built was simple agent. So let's look at the simple agent a little bit closely, what it contains, and I'll show you what the configuration looks for an agent as well. So we'll take that a little bit.
I really like that description. I know we did an episode pretty earlier this season. We talked about agents, but I like this idea of like, what hat am I putting on? Am I putting on this like my TAM role? Am I thinking about my CFM development? There are things that you could have totally different. Everyone has so many different components of their job, and then jump into that. It's the one thing I still need to sort out my agents. So this is prompting me to do. I'll put it on my to do list. Brilliant.
So now you see,
And
I'm in the agent, and with the agent, I did the tools and shows me, oh, this is the MCP that we loaded, and this has got the tools for this particular agent. Sorry, Judith, you were saying something.
no, I just wanted to add there is advantage of using agents because at the end it will reduce the amount of context that you are using inside a queue or whatever tools that you are using. You can show it. So if you are loading a bunch of MCPs at the end, you will see that your context might be full or getting to be full. So using agents will help you reduce the context.
Because you only look at a certain amount of MCPs rather than all of them. Because we had a question, which is, are there any limits on how many MCPs you have to have, or what is the best practice for how many you should have?
That's a very good question, and I have been playing around it with different combinations, and that's why the agent approach. So generally, what I've seen is if you have an MCP which is overloaded with lots of tools, you tend to use a lot of tokens. So what you instantly would see is the context files and the tools will take up using your usage, and then you don't have any window. So keep an eye on this number here, and if you can start on reducing that to a minimal one, that's the best thing you could do. What I've seen is if you have more than 2 or 3 MCPs in your context, you generally don't use them always, so rather move the ones that you don't use that frequently into a different one and put that hat when you want to wear that hat.
Okay. Someone's also put in the chat, Steph has already been collecting hats for years, as people can see. I love. Okay, cool. So we now can see what we have set up, and you've used this different agent that's going to have your new one. Shall we try using the our brand new MCP?
Yeah, let's do that. So I created a 3-tier application in CDK already. I will pull that up just to show what it is. In here, it is a CDK application that has an entry point called as store inventory stack. And the store inventory stack, it is built in London region, but I want to ask it, hey, I want to get a pricing for a different region. Even though I've deployed it in London, I will probably want to change region for optimization perspective,
Oh, do you
or I
want
have
to
a
zoom
deployment
in?
of
Sorry, I
this.
just realized. Sorry,
Okay.
on your Visual Studio. That's my
Yeah.
bad. I was just like, oh yeah, there we go.
No problem. So you can see here I have London, but I don't want to run it in London, or I want to move the architecture somewhere else. Maybe I have a different deployment in different region. So for that, I want to get a pricing beforehand of this application, right? And it is a CDK, it's a general CDK application. So I'm going to prompt it, hey, run a pricing for my application that's sitting in this folder for US East 1, for example. And you can play around with whatever region you want to move it to. So now, as you can see, it is using the tool which is trusted of the simple MCP, which is the analyze IC project. And then it detected these different functions. It says, hey, based on what you have done, I can analyze that this is going to be a monthly cost. So it created a cost estimate for a different region. Let's say I want to compare 2 regions. I could do that as well. So I want to say I want to do run a comparison between, let's say, can you give me a region, Steph?
It's Frankfurt. What's that? I don't know what region that is.
EU
EU.
Central 1.
It was like a test. I was like, I've forgotten all regions. It's not Virginia.
And Judith, anything from you?
I have Virginia in my mind. US East 1.
Okay, let's go.
We
So
should have
now
gone
we
more
are.
extravagant. We should have gone to like South America. I don't know why. I'm just sticking in Europe and
Australia.
ridiculously. What's everyone's favorite region? Put it in the chat. I feel like if there's anyone that doesn't deploy in the normals, let us know. I used to love it when I was younger. When I first went on the cloud, me and the other grads would be like, "Ooh, we'll change to a funky region to be like imaginarily in a different country." I know that's really sad, but we definitely didn't understand pricing back then. Frankie's just put US is one, the classic. Anyway, sorry. Let's keep going.
So now you did a regional comparison. The pricing is same between regions because the application is a very generic application that has the same
Okay.
pricing. But if you had different pricing tiers or different rates, you would have seen a difference. So basically, it tells me, okay, I can based on my application, I can move it to anywhere, and that's quite cool, right? Because now I know my application is not just optimized, but it can run in any region at the same cost.
Yeah, brilliant. And someone's just asked, let me just pull this question up now. Is there any FinOps related MCP use cases that take action on infra-based, on user LLM prompt inputs? Tagging, right sizing for devs only. I think this is where the billing and cost management. Goodness, why can't I remember that one stay in my head? That one comes in, right, guys?
Yeah, so billing, you could use that to do the splits. But when it comes to tagging your resources, you could use AWS APIs for which is also available. So you could do that as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and with the billing MCP, you can get the right sizing recommendations. You can filter out your cost by specific tags if you have cost allocation tags. So you can use that for all of those.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So I'm aware that we're jumping. So we've touched on what an MCP is, how to build it. The answer is use Amazon Q to get you going, and it should kind of give it some more get started. Let us know as well if anyone ever builds one, which I hope you will do. Let us know how it goes. Cost optimization at Amazon. We wanted to touch on the specs, right? That was the next thing we wanted to dive into.
Yeah.
I'm aware we're running out of time, so I want to make sure we jump on this, especially because someone was asking. So, what are MCP specs?
I quite didn't get the question. Is it MCP specs or specs for MCP?
Hold on. Are these two different things?
Totally
Clearly,
different
I'm
things.
not. Okay.
It's like FinOps for Gen AI and the Gen AI for FinOps.
I've blundered, folks. You can tell I don't know. Okay, tell me everything. What do I need to know about the word spec in relation to MCP? I think they're the two things.
Okay, so I can answer the specs for MCP. So specs for MCP is like a context. You add a context. I'll show that quickly. Give me a moment. I'll pull that up on my screen. Okay, so this remember in the when I showed the demo now, I switched to an agent. So agent in agent, I have given the resources, right? This is the agent schema of how an agent looks like. So here I have the prompt. Hey, this is the hat you are going to wear. So this is what you are going to do. And I just mentioned, hey, we are going to stream on Twitch today. So there you go. And this is the MCP. These are the tools. Here you see a section which says resources. Here you could add your resources or specs for the MCP. So that is the specs for the MCP. The MCP will use those specs for driving its, or the agent will use that specs for driving different purposes. So the specs, the resources here are going to be something that the agent would be using to drive the MCPs.
Okay, so a little bit more, like you said, context, any relevant files. I guess you could also put paths to projects you're working on or files about the app, like what you're working on. If there's like, oh, this is a base information or background or readmes, like you've got there.
Yeah, exactly. And in the example that we saw, I am in a folder where I have the application run, where I have the application, the demos. So this is where it knows this is the context as well. So the folder where you are executing QCLI, that's also the context by default.
Okay.
So there are two contexts that you can add.
Okay. So that was specs for MCP.
Yes.
Okay.
And then specs for building MCP is what we want to see as well, right? So let's look at the second example. I'm going to just move this away here. So now what we have here is a spec. So now in the if you remember the first demo where we started building the MCP, I had prompted it. Instead, I want to make it very clear of how I want my application to look like. So let's say you have a persona. This is your persona. You have a sample project code. I want to use these standards. These are my programming standards. I want you to use the best practices. So these are my best practices that I want you to use. I want you to configure error handling. I want you to configure logging. I want you to do AWS integration, API integration best practices, testing best practices. And like, for example, I say, hey, always test. Don't just simply build. You want you to test everything. So that's why it is a command you can also give there. And you can add more uh, items to it. And this section can remain same thing for every MCP that you build, for example, as a boilerplate. And then here I have project requirements. So then this section can be your section where you say, hey, this is what I want my MCP to build. I want LLM to build, and these are the features I want to build. And you can add features to this as you go along. So that's a very handy way. And believe me, you can build your own spec the way you want. There's no hard and fast rule of what should be there, what should be there. But the good practices are generally have a persona, have a structure, best practices, what you shouldn't do, and error handling for sure.
Especially how you want to build is a big thing in this, right? It's the style. Even things like you said, use Python. These reusable pieces of context, even though the first time you make it will be a bit of work to decide what you want, think about it. You actually have to think about these things rather than letting Q just decide for you, which is a big challenge these days. But it means that you're not having to reiterate or get Q to do the same, do it differently. You don't have to go over it, and it's going to save you time in the long run to just have it ready like you like it. It's almost like I'm trying to think of a context of if you return to the same car booking place, you rent the same car once a week from people. If you spend the time to actually say, do you know what car I like this brand, I like this size, and I like using this kind of automatic versus manual or stick if you're in America, you don't have to go back when you rent that car and say, guys, you've given me, it's too big, really, I don't really like that, and have to have that negotiation. So you just set it up for the first time. With the file you have on screen, is this something that you wrote from scratch? Did you use Q to do it? Is there an example the folks watching can get their hands on?
So I started using by learning when I started building an application. I saw, okay, this is the first iteration with the prompt I do. It builds certain things, but it doesn't build certain other things which I wanted to build. Then I learned that, and I added those as different sections. So each section was built through my learning process, and it could be different for everyone, right? It based on what LLM you use, what model you use, what agent you use to build. So it totally is a personal choice. But as an organization, let's say if you want to scale it throughout your organization, you can decide that these are organization standards, and those organization standards can be, for example, testing could be an organization standard, security could be another organization standard, logging could be another organization standard, error handling could be another standard. So these standards could be already documented in your organization, and you can pass that on. So we are not building, in this example, we are not building anything that's UI related, but if there was an UI standard, you would also plunk that in your spec.
And I think that using the spec, it's also a learning that we got by building the tips MCP. We started without a spec, and then Shubu started to experiment with a spec, and we saw, hey, the results are better, it's more consistent, and we can work on it as a group. So not just one developer that is working on the MCP. We have a bunch of developers because now we are working in an organized way. So it's much more structured, it's much more better.
Yeah, because don't forget, folks, when we're dealing with LLMs, they are, or generative AI specifically, it's going to generate different things each time. Unless you give it more kind of constrained parameters, it's going to go and do a million different things. So parsing it in the right thing. This is almost like if you guys have watched episodes on prompt engineering or see me talk about prompt engineering, this is like the next step, right? So not just saying, hey, I'm a developer, make me this MCP. It's, hey, that's like an okay prompt. You've given it a persona, you've given it a certain thing that you want. You could add more in a certain language, but this is going so much more detailed, but not wasting your kind of tokens in terms of just putting it in, and also having to write a paragraph every single time you ask a question, which is great. There was also some questions about getting hold of some examples. What I would say is we're not going to share this one specifically, but if you really want to get in contact, email me at costoptimization@amazon.com and we can see what we can do. That'll be the best way for us to share this at the moment, because we don't have a file share. Right, we've got 5 minutes left. Anything else we need to demo?
I think that's all from my side. Judith, do you want to look at any particular example that you were thinking about from CFM tips, maybe?
Yeah, let's see one example.
Let's swap over to our CFM tips.
So I'm going to swap over there.
Yeah, I feel like Apple smug that I'm like, I just said the commanders. I'm like, I know agents now, folks.
And you can see as well, once they are loaded, let's see if there's loaded. So let's check the MCP. Yeah, it's loaded. And I always use CFM tips alongside with pricing MCP because they change so much better working together. And there are different examples that we can look at. For today, let's look at, hey, run a comprehensive cost analysis in my AWS account. So basically, it's asking the LLM that, hey, I want to do a cost analysis. I have never provided any AWS account, as you can see. I have not provided any credentials. What it's doing underneath is using the AWS CLI credentials that is provided to it. And in here, it's using the tool CFM tips. It's running through the different runbooks that we have for CFM tips. It knows that I want it to be USS1 because that's also my CLI default. So that's why it picks up that. But you could say I want to do it for a different region. It can look for the other region. So that's basically another way you can see the agent and MCP together.
All right, we're coming up on time. Any more questions, pop them in the chat, folks. People are asking for links. On YouTube, I've shared all the links in the chat. Just have a little look in there before we get out to our Secret Richard summary. I will bring up a couple of things to mention. CFM playbook, CFM tips. If you have not checked out CFM tips and you are getting started with cloud financial management, FinOps, optimization, visibility, all of the fun things, go and check out CFM tips. You can see a lovely video about it from a previous episode if you would like, but it's broken down into lots of different topics, foundational stuff like setting up budgets, making sure you don't optimize. But the real fun is when it gets into these playbooks. So many people from Amazon have contributed to these so that you can optimize. This is your first point of call if you want to see and kind of dive through the process. But if you want it just to work on your account, you can dive into the sample CFM tips MCP, like we talked about today, and have a look at yourself. Alongside that, I'll do these now because I've got the screen up. If you, I'm off the wrong page. If you want to learn more about my team and the things that we have coming up, check out the Customer Acceleration Team LinkedIn. And if you want to see what episodes we have, check out Builder Center. We have this nice little summary of all the episodes, and we update these with the on-demand links. And if you want to do some technical building, we have another show that's every other Monday, had with like AWS. Just scan the QR code and subscribe and follow me on there, and that'd be the easiest way to stay up to date with all the things that we are putting out there. But let's go to Richard for our Secret Richard summary. For those who don't know, we have Richard, who is not AI, and he listens to the episode and summarizes all the fun points. So you get a high-level takeaway. You could jump to the end of any of our videos and you will see one of these. So let's bring it up. MCPs, not just for the technically gifted. Yes, if you are non-technical, you can dive on these too. They are extended model capabilities without the complex infrastructure. Use spec-based development to build interactively. Iteratively? No, have I what word does that say?
Yeah, that's right. Iteratively.
Iteratively. Oh, my dyslexia is really flaring up these days, guys. I'm struggling. It's the AI. I'm not reading anymore. CFM tips, MCP searches, supercharge, the playbooks. Yes. So make sure to check all of these things out. Very last thing before we wrap up is, of course, reInvent. How could we forget? Less than a month away. Judith and I are going. This is Judith's second session.
Yay.
A lovely workshop. Judith, do you want to pitch it quickly?
Yeah, it's a workshop on how to develop unit cost metrics with cloud intelligent dashboards that I know Yuri was here a bunch of times. So with Yuri, with Siako, with Shubir, with Nisha. So we will have a lot of fun over there.
Yes, it's going to be a good time. Make sure you register for that if you haven't already. The questions which way I go. If you want some other cost talks, we have a bunch of sessions from the optics team. Go and check those out. If you want to see moi, then you can come to my Devs 318 talk, or there are two versions of my COP4, one which is a code talk where you see us live coding. If you're used to watching Twitch, you see me live code all the time, or other people live code, so it's not as exciting. But at reInvent, I'm in person, so at least you can do that. There's a bunch of different sessions from my team. If you are interested in security, you can go back and screenshot these guys. But we have a bunch of different security cloud ops track. We have prototyping team. One thing I want to shout out is the Builders Fair, which has this cool cornhole thing that they'll like film you doing it and then action replay it, which I think is really cool. So make sure, and if you go to them, say Steph sent you. Maybe they'll let you go have an extra go. With that, we will finish there. But if you see Judith at reInvent, come say hi. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email us or comment wherever you're watching this video, and we'll make sure to get it. But with that, we'll leave you, and we'll see you all next week. Have a good rest of your day, folks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.